Let's start with silver. Silver. Thank you, by the way, everybody, for your patience. So we're getting things set, reoriented for the market analysis. Silver CFDs still rising up. So price of silver has been continuing to crawl upwards since that last big low that we saw on the 23rd of March. The continued rise is encouraging, but as you can see, we are butting up against here for the last little bit. We've been butting up against this pivot point here. I'm just going to mark this one with a little bit more oomph. There we go. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not we can maintain this. This long-term trend line, to me, I see it as having provided enough support that we can continue to rise up. But right now, it'll be about whether or not they want to drop the prices back to these old highs. This double top is a point of interest. Also, a psychological level coming back down into the 50s. But it's going to be about whether or not they can maintain the charade. That's what it always boils down to. The price of silver ought to be about $350 right now if it was to be in accordance with the price of gold. So the suppression of that price is what allows the markets to maintain their stranglehold on that price. And it's the future prices of silver, the contract prices of silver that keep this in that under wraps. All they have to do is sell a whole bunch of futures, the paper contracts. The market makers have that capacity, and they would just drive the price down towards where they want to purchase more physical, the real asset. We've talked about that in the past, how they do the same thing with cryptocurrencies now with the ETFs. Gold, also crawling its way upwards from that low that we saw earlier on the 23rd. That crawling upwards, we're currently, you can see that we've got this. I'll move this down here because this is providing a lot more resistance right now. So there's the resistance line. We got to get above that. And this is now a trend. It's called an inner trend line. On the long term, we follow this longer term trend line, and then outside of that, there's even a longer trend line that is drawn. Right now, though, we are in this inner trend line. It's very similar to a rising wedge. It's extremely steep for a rising wedge. And we'll see, yeah, because we're on the 4-hour chart. We'll see what happens as it comes out. Again, we expect the next impulse to be about the size of the opening. Well, as it stands, that size of the opening right now is about $536. Well, $536 down would bring us back to that trend line. 536 going up, that brings us up to this old high here. So the next impulse will be very telling as to what occurs. And it'll also tell us the plans. It'll tell us what the elites are planning on doing. I'm of a divided mind right now. The capacity we cannot underestimate the banking system's capacity to manipulate these markets. And especially if hope is renewed in the US dollar, that will give the market makers more leverage over the markets.
What happened on March 23rd?
There was another dump. There were two dumps that occurred. Good question. There was that big one after we had that all-time high and everybody was super excited, $120 silver. The first drop was a result of the market makers basically they were restoring their positions. Prior to $100 in this area here, many of the market makers began shorting silver because they said, "Oh, it's never been this high. There's going to be a correction." And it didn't go down. It didn't correct, and they ended up having to borrow, I think it was $10 million a day. If we remember from the Big Short, how they were continuously having to pay the premiums on their trade, and they were losing hundreds of millions of dollars. The same thing occurred here, where they said it's got to correct, and it did not correct. In fact, the price was going to run away on them. And so what they did was that they flooded the market with their futures. So future contracts on silver, they just flooded it to give the impression that there was an oversupply. And that's what dropped the price. And of course, the price dropped right back down. Let's go to the technical analysis perspective for a second. Here's where these highs were. This was back in December, right around Christmas time. These highs kept on getting pressed against. $82 here. They did not expect it, I should say. The higher ups, the market makers knew exactly what they were doing. But what they did was try to get people to position themselves to go down. So they put in trades shorting silver to get a whole bunch of people to get in on this. It didn't work. More and more people were buying physical. And as that price went up, those shorts were losing so much money that they were having to re-leverage that trade. Once it got up over $100, it was a disaster. So in order to suppress that price, they had to flood the market with the contracts. So they sold here, but the price went down, and we read about that in Dario's article, how when the price went down, they were even stealing physical silver from COMEX. They did it again, pressing downwards. And then again, March 23rd. So they suppressed the market by flooding the market with more contracts.
For March 23rd, is there any correlation to what was happening in amongst the political field, like the quote unquote war in Iran?
Yeah, that started at the beginning of March. And we can see that it was at a high. And I have said in the past that war is good for America is a war machine. And so when they are at war, there is a perception that the dollar's value goes up. And, whether that low coincided with maybe a turn of events, I'm not so sure. But the reason I think that this low came to here was because they needed it to. Leading up into December, around Christmas time, that's when they had their shorts start. So, in order for them to profit from that, they need to have that price whip back down and find the lows that would allow for, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this chart here, or this charting tool. Here is where they started shorting, saying it needs to go down. Now, when they do that, their stop line was 100. That's where they're saying that's as far as we'll go. But in order for that 100 for that risk to be something that they can withstand, they have to extend the take profit position further. And typically speaking, they go one or two pivot points. So as this price went up, that just put them into worse and worse position. This here would have allowed them to profit, but not the whole amount. And so they drive the price again to try to get as much profit as they possibly can out of those shorts. That's I'm thinking that that's more so what this is about than a political thing. Um, at the same time, I didn't pay nearly as close to the no, nearly as close attention to the news as I normally do, because there very well may have been a specific correlation saying, "Oh, there's a low, and we might not see that again." Um, all I know is that defying odds, and that was another thing that we saw in The Big Short, just how much the market defied reason. And it was only because of how much the fraud had been leveraged. And that, they were even proud of their achievements.
Is it possible to see where they're shorting? Like,
Yeah, there are charts for that, not on this charting software.
mm,
You have to have access, like you typically speaking, traders that have the data on what the trade volume is and in which direction is the trade volume, they're typically spending, $100 to $200 a month on that data
wow.
to have access to that data. So that's kind of why I like to follow the people who are spending that money on that data.
Well, absolutely. And then you also get their perspective, um, uh, because they follow that data. That's where their curiosity and focus is. And so then you can glean the bits that make sense to you and your community, and not have to do all that work.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing to watch for, and this is another strategy that we see. Typically speaking, whenever there's volatility, like we saw that big drop from the all-time high, that drop was huge. It doesn't look like much on the chart when you see, just how much it's gone up and down, right? This doesn't look like much, but when it comes to this, when it comes to trading, it's all about percentages. And from that high to the first low was 41%. 41% is huge. Uh, yeah, that is a massive market movement. We see that in stocks sometimes. And whenever that occurs, typically speaking, there's a stop. Markets will actually shut down specific stocks just because of the volatility. With silver, though, they're able to do this because you've got your spot price and then you've got your contract price, futures price. So this drop resulted in total a 47% loss, almost 50%. So silver dropped almost half in value in that manipulation. Well, what did they do? Remember, they stole it. Well, what do? Well, then the price rebounds, comes back up to these highs. That's up 42%. They almost made their money back, right? So they made the money coming down here because they were already shorting. So they made some money here, but then they bought as well and rode that back up again. And then they sold, which again drives the price down again. So this is why I like the strategy that I use for trading, is because I just follow the patterns. That's why I draw out the pivot points, because those are areas of interest for the market makers. They always push the price to the next pivot point. And this drop here would have resulted in another 30% gain. Well, if you take the 40% here, right, and then the 40% up, and then the 30% down, they've doubled their money the whole time. Rules of 72, right? So, yeah, they know exactly what's going to happen. And the trick, really, when it comes down to it, if the objective of the trader is to maximize these movements, is to sit in front of the screen and let your eyes bleed for 8 hours a day watching these movements and plotting out the next course, knowing what you're going to do the day before it happens. Or, build an algorithm and let it run on autopilot. Japanese yen. We're paying attention to the Asian markets because they don't have as much oil exports as the rest of the world. And as oil goes up, which it actually did come back down again, but these highs that were created again, look at that, drops again by how much? 19%. As that's it's an alleviation on the stress, especially on the Asian markets. Look at that, how that coinciding has brought it back up again. Oil went up here March, and look at how into March the markets went down. It's because there was less faith in the Asian markets' capacity to withstand the pressures of the oil. But then oil drops here April 7th, and the market, look at that, coincides with another rise starting April 7th. So the loss of those oil, the loss of value in oil has allowed the Japanese markets to prop themselves up again. The yen itself has been consolidating for quite some time in its value. But that again, there's very little hope because the oil crisis, I think that we're just seeing, the alleviation is all of it. Look at how the first few months of Trump's campaign, Trump's latest term started. He started off by making threats of tariffs, not actually implementing them. But the threats of the tariffs is what created market volatility. And he even said, right on screen, saying the stock markets are awesome because I can just say things and they pushes the price in different directions. Yeah. Well, everything that we're seeing, we've talked about this in market analyses in the past. Oil is not a rare resource. It's not finite. It's regenerative even. What we're seeing is simply the result of people opening their mouths and the masses believing what's going on. And then we have also the people who know what mouth is going to open tomorrow and positioning their money for it. Insider trading, they call it.
Kind of like Barron.
This was his move right here. This drop here, I think it was 158 million he made in an hour. Something like that, was in the 150s. And this here, where was that?
Is this Barron political family Barron, or is this a different Barron?
Yes, Barron Trump, the son.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm new to this conversation, so.
Or is that grandson? Is he grandson? He's son, isn't
No, he's the son. Well, who knows what anybody is, but.
he? All right. Yeah. Into tech stocks. Amazon is definitely has its light shining at the end of its tunnel, using this as great support. jumping up almost every week. We'll see what happens here over the next while. If it jumps up and creates another new high, I would expect it to retrace and use the previous highs as support for further movements. I don't think Amazon's going anywhere anytime soon. It's not experiencing the same struggles that the other tech companies are right now. Oracle, for example, has a lot of recovery to do. They're having laid off 30,000 employees last week, seemed to help their stocks. So stockholders are happy that not so much money is being hemorrhaged by button pushers. Google recovering very well, almost at its all-time highs again, coming from a yeah, this was a big drop. 22% drop from the 3rd of February across 55 days, now recovering in 17 days, almost recovering in 17 days. Palantir does have is creating lower lows and has recovered a little bit in the last week. This is Friday the 10th. So we are now into our almost a full week of price recovery, but it is still not doing nearly as well as what the other tech stocks are doing. Nvidia, against all, I did not expect this. It's still technically consolidating, but we do see an extension where we are creating a higher high here. It's going to, what this boils down to is, will it use this high area? Will it use this pivot point as support, or is it going to drop back in? When we see this kind of thing, an expansion, higher or lower low and a higher high, it's anybody's game. That usually indicates a volatility coming up. Gold silver ratio. This is, of course, one of the main ones we're watching. The ratio has dropped this week. So it's now a little bit cheaper to get gold. Bitcoin dominance. Look at that, how it actually went up and touched that old market point, that old pivot point. But what I find interesting about that is that while Bitcoin dominance has been rising, this is the total market capitalization for everything except Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's going up, which means a lot of money's coming in, and yeah, Bitcoin dominance is going up. But typically when we see Bitcoin dominance go up, we do not see a rise in market capitalization in the altcoins. So that means that the accumulation in altcoins is keeping pace with Bitcoin dominance, in that there's money going into altcoins. Yes, more is going into Bitcoin, but it's not the other way around, where typically market dominance of Bitcoin is a sign of altcoins going down. So it definitely creates an encouraging prospect for those who are in altcoins. One of the things that one of the people that I follow there on that realm is Alex Becker. And Alex Becker has been he's been a part of these wealth cycles within altcoins. This is his 3rd season, and he has been always telling people dollar cost average. This is going to become this is going to be a recovery game where you make the most money by being a part of the recovery. And that foundation is in place. He's very, very encouraged to see, and I'm with him on that Bitcoin dominance, even though it rose these last 2-3 weeks, that the altcoins in that same period of time have been rising in capitalization. Ethereum showing signs of that very same thing by creating another high. We can see it pressing up above this old pivot point. We'll see whether or not it gets it above that. We'll see probably the end of the week. We'll know whether or not we are continuing to rise or if we are going to be falling back down to find support down here. Remember, this trend line here might very well be retested. ADA still very much consolidating down at these lower ends of the range, but of course, when we zoom out, as depressing as it is to see it in such a low state, we can see that we haven't broken market structure. You know, that market structure is all the way from June 2023. If there's a major crisis, I do expect there to be a dip, another dip in cryptos, simply because whenever there's a crisis, people typically pull their money out of investments so that they can spend it. And or so that they can go get some toilet paper or whatever else they got to get. So I would expect that if there's a crisis, there would be that. However, we have to remember that this time is different because the last time there was a crisis, Bitcoin fell, altcoins fell, which was COVID, but that they recovered quite quickly is encouraging. But last time there was no Genius Act, and the Genius Act having been implemented already over a year ago and in full force and effect already is an indication to me that there might be a lessened decline in this crisis. That in fact it will likely result in a massive recovery, a very swift recovery. Simply because, again, it goes about being this being a wealth transfer from one form of wealth into another. More and more digital assets are going to be receiving the equity, and that will result in cryptocurrencies taking off. I would expect that if there is a crisis and that the price drops, it will simply mark another buying point for the elites and they will profit more because that's their job. Midnight falling to lows we haven't seen since the start, below 4 cents now. BitTensor also falling from its recent high back in March 25th. But it's at a pretty good line right now. There's another pivot line here. More prominently here. So it would make sense for it to come back here and find that support before taking up another new high. And we're tracking BitTensor simply because this here is a big company that is positioned to provide computing and storage for AI, specifically for large companies, the Googles and the Metas and the Amazons and so on. We've talked about them in the past. It was actually in this area here, around the middle of February, where they signed on a deal with NVIDIA. So there's a tie in there. And as much as people are talking about this big AI bubble is going to pop anytime now, it's terrible. Don't be in AI. It's going to crash. A part of me is like, yeah, but we don't know what the crisis is what the narrative of the crisis is going to be yet. And then it was just, was it yesterday, day before? Jerome Powell, director for the Federal Reserve, he said, our financial system is great. We've never even had a cyber attack. Sounds to me like a cyber attack underway. When we took a look at what the latest Davos meeting, the latest scenarios that they planned at the Davos meeting, yeah, cyber attack is on the list.
They've talked about that for several years now.
Yeah. It was always about the data. It's always about the data. They can't have people having free reign of the printing press. That would just be catastrophic. Can you imagine if everybody had the capacity to self-govern their data? Oof, that would be terrible. We need to create, and again, the a virus of COVID is really the same thing as the virus in data, right? In computing. Got to get people to sign up for that protection, safety. Yeah, I'm not really going to cover anything else right now. That's basically all I wanted to cover for market analysis. I would much prefer to have a Q&A session. Just looking at different
In what you see, what out there for possible events that would cause the market to shift dramatically, what comes to mind as possibilities?
Well, when we take a look at, we didn't even touch the US 30 today. When we take a look at the US markets, like here's that triple top, right? The price came back down, found that as support, and has been rising ever since. But what does that coincide with? End of March. So all through that war, as the war was going on, the dollar did not go up, right? Gold and silver didn't go up. And that was, again, it's like, did the war even happen? Or are we just subject? We talked about that last week. Are we just subject to the war as it is displayed in the palms of our hands? What are they going to do? I think they're going to leverage the narrative and that we're going to be experiencing an energy crisis. That's my feeling. Whether the war is real or not, what is real is people's fear around a cold winter. And that, I think, is what they're going to be playing on for the rest of the year. Apparently, already, this was from Kim with the Dragon Riders, that there are lockdowns now where, what did she say? It was like it's by the license plate. So if your license plate starts with K, this month you're not allowed to drive past 9 p.m. You're not allowed to go driving. All right. That if they've got it on rotation. Oh, your license plate is now it's next month. Now it's a different license plate starting that you're not allowed to go. I can't remember what she said. It was, I don't know if it was a curfew or if it was a radius or something like that. But, algorithm stuff. My feeling is that the energy crisis is going to come before us. Either energy crisis, something's going to happen with energy, or it's going to happen in tech. I still feel that the world isn't quite dependent enough on AI for that to result in a crisis, a cyber attack. I feel like they need to have people gravitating towards AI more for a cyber attack to have maximum effect. So I'm leaning towards energy crisis. But I mean, they could coincide the two of them. They could, have it where the cyber attack is against the financial system, which would be catastrophic, right?
Or maybe even like a 1-2 punch.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that is very real is the manipulation of the oil prices is a weaponization as well. Right? Like the Middle East, they've got a lot wrapped around their little finger, right? A lot of countries are very concerned. And that if the prices, we see these prices rise up and we go back to these all time high levels and even above, very, very real possibility, that it is. Oh, look at that. I can get different units. Interesting. I didn't know that. But that, this, when the prices go up, it's going to be the producers that end up becoming lenders. That's what's going to occur. And that means that energy contracts are going to have to be renegotiated because it's going to decimate some countries. Asian markets, for example. Although now that China owns, and I say now, China has acquired all of the natural resource production companies in Canada, so they've got a cushion there now, as long as the people continue to do absolutely nothing about it. So for it to have its fullest effect, the people would have to take their oil back and prevent China from profiting from it, for the Asian markets to be crippled. China now is a major player in energy.
So how can the people of Canada take back their oil? How?
Well, that's a great question. The process is actually quite simple. The Rupert's Land Act in Western Canada is the little layer of legislation that allows the Corporation of Canada to make energy deals with the natural resources that are within Rupert's Land, which is Manitoba West. That piece of legislation in Alberta, especially, can be removed in 30 days. Any
By
premier
who?
can do it.
Oh,
Any premier can do it.
but it has to be a premier. Can't be the
The way
people.
the people can do it. The people can do it. It's the premier that would have to sign it. They would have to actually do the deed. But the people could make that demand, and that could occur within 30 days. But here's the thing: is that the people could do it if they simply have constitutional conventions and bring governance to their own communities. That is a process, though, that hasn't really begun. And since it hasn't begun, my feeling is that it would take probably 5 or 6 years, unless there was a way that they could bring it about faster, which there are ways that they could bring it about faster. But the mainstream media has done a very good job of getting people to be frightened by tech. It's like, oh, don't do it. Don't use tech. Oh, you know, we can't have electronic voting. Look at how unstable that is. All the fraud. Look at all the fraud in the technical aspects of voting. No,
But put all your personal information into our database so we can get you.
right. Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate that the people have succumbed to so much of the propaganda around tech, because it was in 2018 that I designed a voting system for Paul Band, actually, out near Wabamun, and because they were experiencing tons of election fraud. There's counselors that were they were basically buying votes with cases of beer, and that the money for the beer was coming from the government manager that was getting paid $350,000 a year to be the one to say whether or not they were allowed to use the money that the government gives to the bands. Did you know that the numbers on that? It's $65 billion a year is what the government gives the the indigenous population, 65 billion. And so that money
Which population?
to the indigenous population.
Indigenous, okay.
Yeah, to the reserve.
And yet they still don't have clean water or sanitation. They're still
Nothing.
living like third world countries.
And they say it's our fault.
Of course
And
it
it's
is.
our fault. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, it couldn't possibly have been the government's fault.
Or their own.
Yeah, or their own. Yeah. Agreeing to the treaties, which aren't even treaties.
It doesn't matter. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
take self-responsibility and get your own damn clean water.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the funniest thing is that a lot of places you can drill down like $5,000 and you can get yourself a very abundant well that feeds water to 5 households. You don't have to go down very far.
I had a client once who worked for indigenous nations, writing proposals for government funding. And this one year, she wrote a proposal for this absolutely amazing garden. It was huge. It was like a couple of acres, and got it all set up and got it all running. And by the next season, it was totally dilapidated because there was one person amongst the community who was willing to take care of it.
Yeah. Oh, the
It's
same
all
thing
given to
happened.
them. They just don't care.
Same thing happened in South Africa. All right, there's the farmers that were taking care of the land. There was abundance, and then it was shortly after the great Nelson Mandela. Everybody glorifies that asshole. And, after that, it was only a matter of 10 years, and those farmers were being burned in their driveways. And it was only about 5-6 years ago, Russia told those farmers, we know the persecution that you're under, and we recognize that you have your craft, and here in Russia, we need more of you. And so you're welcome to come here. We'll pay your way. All you need to do is learn the language, and after a year, we'll give you a quick test. And if you're showing progress, you don't even have to be fluent. But as long as you're showing progress in learning Russian, you'll be able to remain. And that ever since that time, the farming industry in South Africa has absolutely deteriorated, where now there are shortages, food shortages. The same thing occurs everywhere our adversary goes and installs their government. It's the same result every single time. Let's make it so that the value of the land is so poor that the people cry out for the government to take over. That's their job. That's just what they do. The answer to it is for people to take self-responsibility. Audrey, what you're working on within the Wellness Beyond, that extends to every area of our life.
Yeah.
And that's why, with Next Gen Merchants, my focus is how do we get the individuals to start practicing this with their finances? If they can start doing this with their equity as an individual, then it becomes a foundation upon which they can share it with their neighbor. And that's what allows this to spread. Until that occurs, constitutional conventions won't even really do that much good, because what's the financial system? If the financial system is the same model as what it was before, you're not really ahead of the game. If this financial system is still something that you have to pass responsibility of your equity in order for it to be safe and secure in a bank, we're going to have the same problem again. Maureen, nice of you to join. How are you?
Hi. I thought, yeah, it's almost new moon, so I'm getting ready to plant. So I'm a little, I
Nice.
wanted to come in and at least say hi and see what was going on.
Audrey
What are
Lynn
you
is
going to
jealous.
plant? Yes, I am jealous.
We've got bell peppers, cilantro. We're planting another round of cilantro. I think potatoes. I'm hoping potatoes. I'm going to have to do a little research before that. And
I would like to have a conversation with you about potatoes because I would like to do an experiment with them, but I don't have a plot.
okay, that would be great.
The experiment is to harvest them in the dark as opposed to harvesting them in the light because they are a nightshade.
They are a nightshade. Yeah. Well, I'm going to do a little bit of research and let's talk. Let's talk at some point. I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Zoa. Yeah.
Yes.
Zoa,
I am
go for it.
brand new to Team Potato, and I'm interested in hearing anything that you all have to say about potatoes. I'm planting them for the first time, and I've already started them, and some of them are 2.5 feet high in my window. But I've started hardening them off, taking them outside. Anyway, potatoes.
That's great.
Let's have a potato talk.
Potato talk.
Potato talk. I like that. Why
So
don't we,
please keep me in that loop.
yeah. I don't know what to do right now. I want to sit
Me
on it.
neither.
See? Yeah. Let's Audrey Lynn, you have your hair different.
Yes.
Oh, look at that. You're all fancy with earrings on and all that. You look very fancy, like you're going to town.
Feeling girly today.
Feeling girly. That's nice, just to feel girly. Okay, well, that's enough of that. Paul, you go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. This
Making fun of me.
This is the chat about anything session where we just let it
That's right.
rip.
Thursday, isn't it? Well, I'm trying to think of a good time. I feel like I'm on the spur of the moment. I want to be more thoughtful. So,
Oh, yeah, don't.
and I don't want to say tomorrow because Audrey Lynn, you don't come on every day. So, but I can always email you. So let Zoe and I, or if you're on the three of us again, let's see what thought we've given it. I would love to have a planting club, and the new moon's coming. So, and it's an important new moon, Aries, or at least in the Western.
Well, and pretty soon, all of the major planets will be moving forward.
They're all going to be, and fire and air. But,
Yeah.
the Farmer's Almanac is kind of like, that's the gardener's guide, right? And it is about the dark. That's why you plant the potatoes then so let's think about it, let it germinate. And then the warrior monk, that's who and there's my warrior monk here. He brought in, we're trying to attract wasps into the Peter butter lure. Otherwise, they're at our dinner table, or when we eat outside, they're always there.
I saw a thing in a catalog called
Your volume disappeared. We see that you're unmuted, but I can't hear you.
You saw something in a catalog, Audrey Lynn?
There is a business called Lee Valley Tools. It's kind of like the Christmas catalog for gardeners.
Oh,
Are
And
you able to hear us?
yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
I can hear you. Yeah.
It says that you're unmuted, but there's no audio coming in.
Oh,
It's just you, Paul. I can hear her. Maureen can hear her.
yeah.
It's just you, Paul.
Maureen,
Maureen
I can't hear you.
can't hear me either. Yeah. I think everybody else can hear but you, Paul.
Maybe my audio is the one.
Oh, there it is. It's just you, Paul. Why don't you email us that link, Audrey Lynn?
Where is it?
Wow, look at that. And I
So
know
what
there
it is
twigs, too.
it's a thing that you add to your hat. I'll email Lee Valley. Anyway, it's a thing you add to your hat, and it causes the horse flies and the wasps to have a second thought
Ooh,
because that
I'm
that pretend bug might eat them.
I'm very interested in that. But could you email that to
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
have Zoa's email too? And then we could start a potato link.
Yeah, no, I don't have Zoa, but I'll email it to you, and if you would be so kind.
I'll email it to Zoa, but if the three of us could be on a link, that would be good. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I can do that.
Awesome sauce.
Let's see. Awesome sauce. I want some of that awesome sauce. Okay, wait
Oh,
a
and then
second.
they have a waspinator.
Audrey Lynn Fluid. And so I have to do this while you're on the phone. Start where you are now. Can I go there, Zoa?
Yeah, start where you are now, hyphen Zo. Oh, I shouldn't be saying this is on YouTube.
Oh,
Let's not do
yeah.
this here.
There's a whole bunch of other things. Okay, so and
You
I'll
could-
put then my so Potato Club.
I feel for all the people that are listening on YouTube.
Well,
But
they
our
could
potato
change too, I guess, if they want.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's to the two of us. So now then maybe you could send us that link and we can start.
Audrey wants to be in the potato club too, and Audrey, I am planting in pots as well.
Okay,
Perfect.
Audrey wants to be in the Potato Club too. I'm sorry, Audrey, I didn't even ask you. Okay, sent.
Look at that. Amazing. You know, Maureen,
Yeah.
this is exactly what I visualized Dragon Riders facilitating within their platform. It's one little group, and you start that just from there. You just start with the little initiatives for communities to apply, to practice.
I
Amazing.
received the email, and I'm wanting to know how to add Audrey when I don't want her to be giving her email on Zoom or on.
Audrey, could you just go ahead and type it in the private chat, because the private chat does not get displayed
Okay.
anywhere but here.
Okay. If you do that, I will send this out now to Audrey, and then it'll be 4.
Yes, will be a whole
Look
square.
at that. The Potato Club is already multiplying.
It's getting
There-
eyes.
She's
The
got it in
eyes
there
have
now.
it. Oh, that would be the name of our club. The eyes have it.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm kidding.
I like it.
I have 4 eyes right now. Never mind. Get rid of me, would you? Like, I've got to eat breakfast. I'm like lightheaded here. All right, you guys. I'm gonna listen.
Well, that's all I had. I mean, we're coming up to the hour, and then at the half hour, I'll be coming back in for co-work for the afternoon. So you guys are welcome. I'll turn off the stream here. You're welcome to keep on visiting. I just got to get